Welcome to the Seller Roundtable e-commerce coaching and business strategies with Andy Arnott and Amy Wees.
Hey everybody, how's it going? We're live now. So I just wanted to say hello to my friends Meghla and Margaret who are here from India Sourcing Network. Hey ladies.
Hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good early morning from Singapore.
Super early. Yeah. So we're going to hang out today and we're going to talk about, all of us source from different areas of the world. And there's a lot going on today and upcoming and just kind of the state of affairs. And, I just got back from ASGTG last week and Prosper before that. And we've had a lot of conversations about what's happening in different places. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about what's happening on your side of the world, as well as just in your networks, what people are doing. And we'll talk, of course, about sourcing from India because we have to, because it's, duh. And then, we'll hang out and see what's going on. So everyone who's watching here on the live, if you would like to join us on inside of the Zoom, you can go to sellerroundtable.com/live and you can join us in the Zoom. And I'm going to hit the record button and we're going to start recording the podcast. So without further ado, let's go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Amy Wees, and Andy Arnott is out today. He's taking care of the kids, so he handled the podcast for me last week. I'm handling it for him this week, but we miss him because he's great. And we're here with my friends Meghla and Margaret from India Sourcing Network, and we're on episode 120, nice round number of the Seller Roundtable. And we're going to talk about some really interesting things today. We just want to talk about kind of the state of affairs right now. There's some crazy stuff going on across the world. There's just, container shortages, and like the last shipping prices were like $30,000 for a container or more. And, China handles a lot of the raw materials. So no matter where you source from, it's crazy. We're going to talk about sourcing from different areas of the country. We're going to talk about what are private label sellers going to do when they inevitably run out of inventory and can't afford more. When is all this stuff going to normalize? We're going to talk about, how we're managing our businesses during this time. And so it's going to be a great conversation with ladies with just a wealth of knowledge from sourcing all over the world here. So ladies, thank you so much for being here. And I would love to just start with Meghla and just a quick introduction. Tell everybody a little bit about your background and where you're from and however much you want to tell us.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Amy, for inviting us. So my background is basically in the sourcing industry. I've been working in sourcing for over 20 years. I started way back in the year 2000 in India. Then I moved to the Philippines. I lived and worked in China for almost 10 years, and currently I'm in Singapore. And most of my career, I've worked for B2B sourcing platform called Global Sources. And about 3 years ago, I started my own venture trying to help Amazon and e-commerce sellers source products from India. And I started India Sourcing Trip, which was basically an 8-day trip to take Amazon sellers to India to source products. And of course, we couldn't do the trip in 2020, so we had to kind of pivot, and we started helping sellers source virtually. So then I joined forces with Margaret and her partner, Kevin, and the three of us launched India Sourcing Network earlier this year. And then last year, we also were doing virtual India Sourcing show, where we were inviting manufacturers from India to do live webinars inside of our group. And we've recently launched a workshop as well to help people source from India. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff.
That is awesome. And, I met you in China at Global Sources in person for the first time. And, you're just a wealth of knowledge. And I was so stoked to go to India with you. And then COVID, what happened, right? That's what we all said. And then COVID, we've all said that. It's crazy. So great to have you here, Meghla. Thanks so much for being here. And Margaret, tell everybody a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us, Amy. It's lovely to be here. Yeah, well, I suppose started all my career. I've worked in managed businesses. We've owned businesses, so I've sort of had a pretty sort of business orientated career. But in 2017, we started looking at doing some selling on Amazon, and started off with China, of course, and we're on our way to Canton to find some more products in October of that year. And we actually stopped off in Hong Kong and found a really, really great Indian supplier at the one of the fairs there. And look, the rest was history. We got to Canton and we went, what are we looking for here? We found our products. We're not, going to really look. So we spent a couple of days just moseying around Canton and went sightseeing for the rest of the week, and started sourcing from India. So we've actually sold out of our China products and started developing products from India. And to this day, I'm still got the same supplier, and we've sort of moved forward with that. But, in the meantime, of course, we met Meghla because we were sourcing from India. Somebody put us in contact with Meghla, and she said, come on our trip, which was the trip of a lifetime. People, you have got to get on the next trip. I mean, people say, how good is it? But until you've done it, I can't even explain it. I've never had even a holiday that's been that well organised, with the queen of organising herself, Meghla. It was just unreal, the trip. And look, we still talk about it, and it's funny, most of the people on that trip we still speak to regularly. We message each other for our birthdays. We've formed a little family, I think. So yeah, and from there, of course, well, the next trip was booked and paid for, and we were all heading off, and it got cancelled. So we started doing our Viz shows, and we've just, what else can we do? Because it's, we thought, oh, we'll be going in April, we'll be going, and it's just going on. So you've just got to keep pivoting. And I think, we've done well, and got the India sourcing network going. And hopefully, it's not as good as going to India, but it's a way for people to find products and move on. So yeah, looking forward to, going to India next year, hopefully.
My fingers are crossed. They are. I know, people have been reaching out to me, and because the Canton Fair, I have a little China trip. It's not a big China trip, but a little one. And people have been reaching out and saying, Amy, are you going? And because the Canton Fair just recently said that they were going to do it in person. And I wrote an article for RD Express because, people were asking questions like, who's going and how do you, and I think what we didn't expect is that when Canton Fair announced, okay, they were going to do it in person, right, this time, I think that was right before we had the peak again of COVID numbers going back up again. And so, I think they announced that, and then everything kind of locked down. So, but there's a lot of restrictions. It's very hard. You would have to add at least 14 days onto the front end of your trip for, quarantine rules and stuff like that. And then, there's really no guarantee. Like, you have to have a specific vaccine that's approved by China. And then on the back end, there's some other kind of requirements too. There's no guarantee you could get out, right? It's just that. So we were like, no, I mean, if you want to go, here's the information on what you could do, but we won't be chartering a trip there. No. So how is it in India right now? Is it, I know that the numbers were kind of climbing recently, and they were kind of hitting their peak after us, right? So how is it going in India right now with the COVID situation?
Well, it is improving a little bit as of now. And a couple of months ago was pretty bad. Numbers were very high, and it was a lot of people were being affected, and there were lockdowns and everything. But now things are sort of improving. In fact, in Delhi, they've announced that they're going to be reopening schools later this month. So that's a really good sign. After almost a year, or maybe a year and a half, schools are going to reopen in Delhi. So that's a good sign. And the organizers of the Delhi Fair, which is the main export focused fair that we visit during the trip, they have recently, just a couple of days ago, announced that they're hosting the physical in-person fair in October. Again, I don't think too many people are going to be coming in from overseas. Like at Canton Fair, they're also expecting mostly domestic people to come to the fair. Yeah, I think so. The same for the Delhi Fair as well. They're probably expecting, maybe if there are sourcing agents that represent buyers, or maybe some of the companies there have their own buying offices, so their representatives. So it's going to be mostly domestic and local people attending the fairs. But I think that's a really good sign that, these fairs are happening. Canton Fair, Delhi Fair, Global Sources is also hosting their fair in Hong Kong in October. They usually do 3 fairs, but they've now compressed all of the 3 into one. So they're just doing, one small fair. So yeah, hopefully this is a sign of good things to come next year.
Yeah, and I love that you pointed that out, because I think also in the US, things are starting to open back up again as well. I mean, I know we also had a trip planned to the Las Vegas Licensing Expo, and it kept getting moved and kept getting moved. And then same thing, traffic and conversions. A lot of people had tickets to that, and that kept getting moved. And now they're actually hosting and holding these conferences. So it is still a concern, right? You've got a big group of people in a very contagious virus right now. So, I know a lot of us went to Prosper and got COVID, myself included. Luckily, there weren't too many major cases, like nobody was, massively hospitalized or death as far as like I know, right? But it's still a concern, it's still, we still need to be careful, and but it's a promising thing. I think that, like you said, for domestically, things are starting to open back up, and people are getting out, and they're going and they're meeting, and yeah, I've really enjoyed the events, getting back out to some of the events again. It's been a nice time.
Also, in terms of manufacturing, we found that there hasn't been too much disruption this year for manufacturing. Of course, factories had to be closed down in case there was a case over there, or in case some cities were in lockdown, the factories had to be shut down entirely. But overall, what we found is that this year suppliers were kind of keeping their factories open, but they were, following all the different types of procedures and safe distancing and all of those things. Whereas last year, when there was a lockdown, there was a complete lockdown, like all factories were completely shut down and the whole country shut down for like almost a month. But this time, the government has been a bit more cautious about, announcing like a nationwide complete lockdown. So they've allowed industries and offices to function. And so we found that most people, there have been delays in terms of the orders that people were expecting, but there haven't been significant factory shutdowns. That's what we found. And Margaret, you can maybe talk about your own factory.
Yeah.
Were they shut down at all?
No, look, not in this year, but I think back in May they had like a bit of a time where a lot of the workers had gone back to the villages. But I was speaking to my supplier last Thursday, and he's probably, I've got an order ready for Christmas, and hopefully it's going to leave today or tomorrow. But he said like they've struggled a little bit to just keep up, because, and of course, they've been getting busier because, we've been sort of directing a lot of work over there as well. And I think so, it's sort of given them a bit of a business boost as well, because we've, people are now finding India and moving to India as well. But, he said he's been frantically busy and it's really good. And at the moment, I mean, look, I can't complain for what they've been through. To have my order ready now, I'm quite happy, because, I would have thought at the earliest it would have been, mid-August anyway. So, yeah, no, pretty good, I think.
I think in terms of, suppliers in China, it's similar. A lot of workers did not come back. There's a lot of evolution that's happening in China in terms of factories selling their own products. And so, it's changed a lot in terms of priorities, I think, for some of the factories, but then also just the increase overall globally in purchases and people getting into e-commerce and all of that has really increased the workload of a lot of folks in China. But what I would love to ask, and I'll ask this to Margaret, since you're kind of working through some shipments right now, how, I know we're being really impacted by the increased there's container shortage and the increased shipping prices from China, which seem to be controlled by the shippers, like they're kind of able to set their own prices. So how are you being impacted in India? Is it the same, or
not anywhere near as high as shipping? Like the container costs, I've heard, as you said before, like China's like 30,000. I think at the moment India is more like 10, 12,000 a container. But I mean, that still is, you know, a huge increase. And like because I get people to send me their quotes and look at the costs. And I mean, just for people's interest, just the shipping component part, I think the cubic meter rate went from, like, mine was $57 a cubic meter 12 months ago, and it's now, the last time I looked, it was 260, and there's a new increase due again today.
Oh, wow.
So it is, you know, like, it's a pretty bit, I mean, that's only the shipping component. It's not all the other add-ons. So it doesn't mean it's going to be that, you know, times that, but it's still a big, big increase. And we know every fortnight they get a shipping increase. But I mean, I think it's still, the shipping lines are owned really by the same companies worldwide. So I think if they're going to price correct, and I actually was on a call with somebody last night, and they said, oh, well, should we wait? Do you think the prices will go down? And I went, yeah, I'll just get out my crystal ball. I mean, we're hoping that maybe India, because we don't have the Chinese New Year rush and all that, that once they get the backlog of the Christmas, you know, shipping done, that maybe India's prices might come down in the new year. And I'm hoping, because I've just got another order that's ready. And I said to him, don't have it ready till January, please. I'm not paying for it in December.
So you're hoping, because I was just going to ask that to you ladies, is in terms of, you know, shipping supposedly is supposed to normalize in 18 to 24 months. Globally, right? So that gives us some idea, like, we're going to be in this situation for about 2 years. And so, you know, when we look at, I know at least the folks that I know, and myself included, we're ordering a little bit more inventory. I tried to get my stuff out in August. I've still got one thing that left, I think, this week, and my shipping cost was like $6,000 for 2,000 units, which normally it's like $2,000 for shipping. So, I mean, for me to take up a part of a container, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like $24,000, but still, you know, it's definitely increased. And the way I was able to get a lower rate was to go through the supplier, because I think they already have reservations on some of these, in some of these containers already. So I was able to get a lower rate that way. But the question is, you know, what are you seeing people doing? Are they thinking about raising their prices? Do we think there's space to raise prices? Or do you think they're just going to sell out? And if they can't source again, like if they can't restock for a reasonable price, do you think they'll raise their prices then? Or you think they'll not? I mean, I was talking to my buddy Carlos the other day, and he said, you know, some of my brands, I'm stocking them up right now. I've got a lot of inventory, but when that inventory runs out, if shipping doesn't normalize, I don't think the market's going to take necessarily an increase in price. I'm just going to let it sell out, and I'm going to move I'm going to start sourcing a lot of new products, kind of building out brands in a different way, and sourcing new products from the US and Latin America. So, you know, trying to stay local so that you don't have a lot of shipping costs, right? But that's not easy either. You know, you have to completely change your brand, your focus in your products. There's a lot of things that you can get in the US, for example, but you know, you need to switch to like food products and stuff like that. So what are you seeing across the board? Are you guys seeing people are planning on raising their prices? Do we not really know?
Look, Meghla, do you want to go with that, or?
No, you go ahead, Mark.
Well, look, I think, well, personally, I mean, when I look at it, my sort of, if my quote comes in at what I'm thinking it's going to be, I'm probably up for, on average, over all my products, probably about $4 a product. I mean, some I could probably sustain the $2 or $3 price increase, but some, you know, you've got to look at each niche and go, you know, who's my competition? You know, is that sustainable? Can I do it or not? But I mean, I'm hoping that a few more people put their price up. But I found in one of my niches that everyone's got like a price war happening. And some people, like I've got a product that I sell for $49.95, and there's been people selling for, you know, $48. We're around the same price. Some of them are selling for $28.95, and I'm going, why? What is going on here? Like, to me, I don't understand that theory. I mean, they are Chinese suppliers. I've gone and investigated. So it seems to be whether they're trying to get rid of the other people who, you know, they've got cheaper shipping rates. I don't understand it at all in that, you know, in those niches. So I think it just depends what niche you're in, whether your niche can stand, maybe $1. I said to someone the other day, maybe put it up $1 next month and then try $1 the next month and try $1 the next month and see if that slow price increase can happen. But I had a product last year that I ran out of stock at this time. So I just air freighted in a small shipment, and of course it was an extra $5 a product. So I just thought, oh, I'm still going to run out of stock the way it's going, because it was sort of going quite well. So I put my price up $5, and my price is still up $5 today, because it really didn't affect, I mean, it may have, maybe I just sold more, but hey, I don't care. I'm making $5 extra. It's pretty easy money. So, you don't know until you try it. I think that's,
I think that's great advice. And I think the other thing that people should be thinking about is, there's going to be a lot of people who keep their price low and run out of stock.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
aren't going to be able to replenish for the same reliability and the same price. So, just like when I used to do reselling and retail arbitrage, you kind of can play the game. You can let the special folks kind of run out of stock, and then you can raise your price and be the only one selling, and I'm not saying to gouge people, but you can utilize some of those tactics. Raise your price a little bit, like Margaret's saying. You never know. Raise it $1 here, raise it $1 here, and see what happens, right? See if it's still selling. And then when other people in your market run out of stock because they're selling at these rock bottom prices, you're the only game left in town, and you're selling like great at great prices. I think, overall prices are going to go up. Like if we look at Ashley Furniture is one of the largest importers in the US of furniture, right? And they're one of the biggest movers of containers, and furniture has already gone up like double, 3 times. So it's like across the board, most goods, the prices are going to go up. So I would encourage people to not necessarily pay attention to that factory who isn't making any money. And it was like, remember, a consumer, as long as it's not outrageous, right? And then they're seeing the value for what they're paying, they will usually pay more, and they'll actually perceive your brand and your product at a higher value simply because of the price and the presentation of it. So I love that tactic. I think it's really smart to not be afraid to just try it, right?
Yeah, no, I'm going to give it a go.
Also, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, everybody's in the same boat, right? I mean, everybody is experiencing the same type of shipping cost increases. So ultimately, it has to maybe be passed on to the consumer, or you have to kind of discontinue the product altogether. And I think a lot of people are also reviewing their products to see, where they can maybe how they can reduce the production cost overall of the products. So I'm also seeing, companies talking to their suppliers and trying to figure out, okay, can we make this, smaller? Can we reduce the, width of the wood, for example, over here? So I see a lot of people kind of talking to their suppliers to try to come up with ways to reduce the overall production cost, because yes, the shipping component we can't control, but we can control the production cost. So, that's something that you could consider as well. Just talk to your supplier and see if there is a way to maybe use a different material or change the functions, features of your product to kind of get a lower price.
And not to mention, such a great point, Meghla, and not to mention also changing your packaging dimensions or the way that your product collapses down. That can save you a lot of money. We have a product that we just folded it differently. It's a foldable product, and we folded it differently, and the packaging, it reduced us, and it saves us $10 in Amazon fees per product. So it's like, geez, that made a huge difference, like really brought our margins up. And here, all we did was just try to fold it differently and, put it in a poly bag a different way, where we used to roll it and it was like really long, and that, put us in a different category. So there's lots of things that you can do, and we should be looking at where can we move the needle. Maybe we need to focus in on our advertising in a different way. Maybe we need to reduce the cost of production. Maybe we could move, moving production to India, for example, is a great opportunity. Sometimes in other countries, in China, often you have to order larger quantities because it's bigger factories, stuff like that. And what I love, I've been trying to move some of my stuff to Latin America. I was talking to a factory in Mexico today, and I was first of all surprised that I could even find it. But in Mexico, or Latin America, often the problem that people have is that these factories they're not China, right? So they can only order in smaller quantities. But production is very fast, and it can be in the US in like 2 to 3 days after production, right? So you can order smaller quantities. It's perfect for micro brands, perfect for people that don't want to have to order 6,000 units and leave it sit there, right? So how is it in India? Can we order smaller quantities across the board? And how is that going for shipping? Are we able to, maybe if we can find the same or similar product in India, can we reduce costs that way?
Thanks for tuning in to part 1 of this episode. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for live Q&A and bonus content after the recording at sellerroundtable.com. Sponsored by the ultimate software tool for Amazon sales and growth, sellerseo.com and amazingathome.com.